So now let's look at the harder way to sign your application. If you can get away with it, doing the export from Eclipse is definitely preferable since it's so easy. This is a little bit harder, but there's going to be some times where you're not going to be able to do that. One good example I can think of is I just was publishing one of my applications to the Amazon market, and the way that the Amazon market works is they basically will take your application, they'll put their DRM into it, and then you need to sign your application. So you can't really upload them a signed application because they couldn't make their changes to it in order to insert their little piece of DRM code in. So you've got to give them an unsigned application. Let them do their thing. They give you back an application, and then you need to sign it. So I had to go through this, and it's worth knowing how to do this so that in case you're in a situation where you need to manually sign it, you're able to. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to open up a command prompt. And I'm going to show you, I don't have the tools installed or the path. And that's the common problem that most people face is they say, okay, I have to use this tool called key tool. Oh, it's not recognized. Well, you got to set this up so that key tool is in your path, or you got to go into the Java directory because this is a Java tool. It's actually not an Android specific tool. And this is what we're going to use to create our key store, create our key. So let me show you. If we go to, I've already got it open here. I've gone to my Java JDK bin directory. You can see I have key tool here. This whole directory we're going to need in order to be able to use these tools. So what I usually do is I will just go and then go to my system and then put this in my environment variable. That's the easiest way to be able to do this. So if I go to advanced system settings here and then environment variables, and then I'll just put it right at the end of this path here, and now I have access to that. And now if you've opened up a command prompt, you're going to have to reopen that command prompt in order to refresh that. So go in here and then command again. And then if I do key tool now, you can see that I've got it in my path. So now we're going to use this tool in order to create to basically do the same things that Android did for us. And if you look at this, it's quite daunting, but I'm going to show you how to do it. You won't have to understand how all of this works, but we can use a formula here in order to accomplish what we need for our purpose. Okay, so let's go ahead and use the key tool to create a key store and certificate. The way we do this is we are going to go and type key tool, and then we're going to type the command gen key, which tells it that we're going to generate a public and private key there. -V for verbose mode. And then we're going to say where the key store is, or what the name of the key store is. And actually this will be, we'll do C/Android, and we'll call this manual key store demo. And then the next thing we need is an alias, just like we did in the export. And only the first 8 characters of this are going to be used. So I'm just going to call this one demo. And then we're going to pass in this key ALG argument and give it a value of RSA. And this is going to tell it what algorithm to use for the encryption. And then we need to tell it what size. And we'll do 2048 to give us a good size encryption here. You should just use this value because it's going to be secure. We don't really have to know everything here. We can kind of just follow this procedure and be okay with it. And that's perhaps best. If you don't really understand the security, you really shouldn't be messing with it. You should be doing what you know works. So that's kind of the philosophy I go with, and that will work in this case. And then the validity, this is in the number of days that the key is going to be valid. So I'm going to put 10,000 here. And I'm going to hit enter. And now it's going to ask me for a password. So I'm entering a password, re-enter that password. And then just like it did on the export, it's asking for a first and last name. name of organization, and we can skip these things. And then it's going to ask us if this is correct. And you can see here, if you're familiar with LDAP this or Active Directory, this should look a little bit familiar. And we're just going to say yes here, or we can just say Y. Okay, so now it's generated a key pair and a self-signed certificate with a validity of 10,000 days. Now we have to enter a password for that alias that we created. So I'll just enter the same password here, and then we've got that key stored. So now we've got that part done. We actually have created our key, and we're ready to sign our app. So the next thing that we're going to need to do is actually get an unsigned version of our app. So that's pretty easy. We just go right into here, and then just like we did with the signed one, we're going to go to Android Tools, except this time we're going to choose Export Unsigned Application Package. And what we'll do here is we'll just call this Protein Tracker. I'll put a U on the end so that we know it's unsigned. And then it's telling us that it's been put out there, but we're going to need to sign it with our release key, and we're going to need to run zip-align before we publish this out here. So we'll hit OK here, and then we'll go back to our command prompt. So now we're going to use another tool that's a Java tool called Jar Signer. So we'll type in Jar Signer. We'll choose verbose again so we can see what's happening here. And we're going to specify what the key store is. And this is going to be that same key store we created under C, Android, and we called it manual key store demo. Okay. And then we are going to choose the application that we're going to sign. So this is under C, Android / protein tracker u.apk. Actually, I think it might have just been protein tracker u. Okay. And then we are going to choose the alias name, which was demo. We enter our password, and there we go. We've got our protein tracker application is now signed. And in case you're curious, you can kind of see what this signing is done here. It's added a few files here, a .rsa file and manifest file. It's signed these files that were in our directory, including our classes.dex and then all of our resource files. And this is the key that it used to sign it, so someone can verify that we are the person who signed it. So now what we need to do is to go ahead and let's verify that this was signed correctly. So we can use the Jar Signer verify tool. We can do verify verbose, and then we're going to go and choose our application, which was C Android protein tracker u. Okay, and we can see that the jar was verified. This tells us that the signature was verified, for example, on all of these. So we know that we've got a valid signed file. And this is important just to make sure that we're not going to have any problems when we put this out there. Now the final step that we want to do is to align the APK, basically align our application. And what this is, without going too detailed into it, is it's basically we're going to align our application on 4-byte boundaries, which basically is going to make it more efficient. It's going to take up less memory when it's run on our device, because it's going to basically be able to jump to different memory locations to get to different parts of our application a lot quicker. If you're familiar with the old Win32 and aligning your memory for your DLLs, it's a lot like that. The same type of idea is that if the operating system can know where certain parts of your code are going to live, it can jump there pretty quickly. So it's just something that you should always do. And I don't really have the time to go really into depth into it. But if you're curious about it, you can look up zip-align on Android's developer site, and they kind of go in a little more detail. But anyway, all that we really need to know is that we need to do this to make our application more efficient. And so we'll do zip align -v for verbose, and then 4, and then we're going to choose our file, which is Android/protein tracker u, and then we're going to choose what the output will be, and this will be Android/protein tracker u.apk, since we didn't name it first APK when we had exported it. And we have the same problem here as we had with the Java. Well, that's because this tool isn't in our path. Now we get to add this tool to our path. And this one doesn't live in the same place. This is not a Java tool. This is actually an Android tool. So let me show you where this one lives. So if we go to our Android SDK, and then we go to Tools, we should find right here Zip-Align. So we can add this to our path, and this is probably a good idea to add this to your path, just because there's some other tools in here that you may want to use. So I usually do that, so we'll just go in and do that. And we'll go to our environment variables. We'll put this into our path again. Now we should be all set up with our Java tools and our Android tools. So we'll go ahead and exit this prompt. And then we'll just go ahead and retype this command. Okay, now we should be able to execute this command. And we get our file aligned. And if we go and we look just to verify that we've got it, bring this up, and we've got our protein tracker u.apk, and it's actually been zip aligned. So now we're actually ready to go, and that's really all there is to it. A lot more steps here, a little confusing using all those command line tools, but the good news is you don't really have to know exactly what it's doing. We can kind of just follow this formula. It's not really important to understand all the details of what is going on here. We have the tools to be able to verify that this has worked correctly. So that makes us a little bit more confident that we've done the right thing. If you forget those steps, there's a good place to go, which is, I've mentioned this before, the developer.android.com site, which is put out by Google, that you can go out there and you can see the steps to do the app signing. And I'll also put these in the summary of the slide so that you can see what those exact commands are that we did.